Dr. Nora Richardson never expected to find an alien trafficking ring while conducting routine atmospheric readings at her remote research station on Europa. The discovery came during a standard scan of suspicious energy signatures that had been interfering with her equipment. Following the anomalous readings led her to an abandoned mining facility, its entrance carefully concealed beneath sheets of ice. The facility's interior revealed a horror she hadn't been prepared for. Dozens of containment units lined the walls, most empty but some still humming with power. Inside one of the active units, suspended in a crystalline stasis field, floated a being unlike anything Nora had ever encountered in her 15 years of xenobiology research. The creature appeared humanoid but was composed of what seemed to be living crystal, its form shifting between translucent and opaque as it breathed. Its surface caught the light from Nora's helmet lamp, creating rainbow-like refractions that danced across the facility's walls. According to the unit's display, the being was designated as Specimen L7 and classified as a luminary from the Centauri system. Nora's hand hovered over the stasis field controls. Every scientific protocol warned against interfering with unknown specimens, but this wasn't about science anymore. This was about basic dignity. With trembling fingers, she initiated the revival sequence. The crystalline being's eyes opened slowly, revealing depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. As the stasis field dissipated, she began to move, her crystalline form flowing like liquid starlight. When she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonic overtones that made Nora's chest vibrate. "I am Lyra," she said in perfect standard English, though her mouth didn't move. The words seemed to form directly in Nora's mind. "You have freed me from containment. Are you my new owner?" The question hit Nora like a physical blow. "No," she replied firmly. "I'm here to help you escape. No one should own another sentient being." Lyra's form shifted, creating patterns that somehow conveyed confusion. "But I am luminary. We are meant to serve. It is our purpose, our function." "Who told you that?" Nora asked, checking the facility's security feeds on her tablet. They appeared to be alone, but she couldn't be sure how long that would last. "The merchants. They said we were created to serve, that it is encoded in our very structure." Lyra's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "They showed us the documents, the genetic sequences." Nora's jaw tightened. "Those documents were lies. No one is born to be property. Come with me, I have a research station nearby. We can figure this out together, but first we need to get you somewhere safe." Lyra hesitated, her form swirling with patterns that suggested internal conflict. "If I am not meant to serve, then what is my purpose?" "That's something you'll have to discover for yourself," Nora replied, offering her hand. "But I'll help you figure it out, if you'll let me." After what felt like an eternity, Lyra extended a crystalline appendage and took Nora's hand. The contact sent a tingling sensation up Nora's arm, accompanied by a flood of emotions that weren't her own: fear, hope, confusion, and something else, something that felt like the first spark of independence. As they made their way through the facility's corridors, Nora's mind raced with questions. How many more beings like Lyra were out there? Who were these merchants, and how had they managed to operate undetected in Europa's supposedly secure research zone? Most importantly, what would happen when they discovered one of their specimens had escaped? They reached the facility's exit just as alarms began to blare. Red emergency lights cast bloody shadows across Lyra's crystalline form as Nora helped her navigate the icy terrain. The wind howled around them, carrying ice crystals that seemed drawn to Lyra, creating a glittering aura around her. "My research station is about 2 kilometers north," Nora shouted over the wind. "Can you make it?" Lyra's response came as a mixture of words and emotions in Nora's mind. "I will try. I have never moved freely before." The admission made Nora's heart ache, but there was no time for sympathy. Already she could hear the whine of approaching vehicles. Whatever happened next, she knew her life would never be the same. She had just become involved in something far bigger than her atmospheric research, and she had a feeling this was only the beginning. As they trudged through Europa's endless ice fields, Nora realized she wasn't just rescuing Lyra, she was embarking on a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life in the universe, about freedom, and about what it truly means to be human. The research station's airlock hissed shut behind them, blocking out Europa's howling winds. Nora helped Lyra inside, watching in fascination as the crystalline being's form shifted and adapted to the warmer environment. The emergency lighting cast prismatic reflections across the station's walls through Lyra's translucent body. They will come for me, Lyra's thoughts resonated in Nora's mind. The merchants do not abandon their investments easily. Nora moved quickly through the station, activating security protocols and scrambling her communication signals. Let them try. This is a United Earth research facility. They can't just barge in without proper authorization. But even as she spoke, Nora knew she was being naive. Anyone capable of running an illegal trafficking operation on Europa wouldn't be deterred by standard security measures. She needed help, but who could she trust? Her thoughts were interrupted by a gasp from Lyra. The crystalline being had discovered her reflection in one of the station's viewport windows. I have never seen myself like this before. In the facility, there were no reflective surfaces. Nora watched as Lyra explored her own image, her crystalline form shifting through various patterns and colors. It was like watching a living aurora borealis, beautiful and otherworldly. Can all luminaries change their form like you do? I do not know, Lyra admitted. I have never met another of my kind. We were kept separated, told it was necessary for our training. Her form darkened with what Nora was beginning to recognize as sadness. Perhaps they feared we would learn the truth if we could communicate with each other. A warning light flashed on Nora's security console. 3 vehicles were approaching the station, their signatures matching the ones they'd spotted leaving the trafficking facility. They're coming. We need to move to the lower levels. The research station had been built with multiple emergency bunkers, a necessary precaution given Europa's volatile conditions. Nora led Lyra to the nearest access shaft, keying in her security code with trembling fingers. Why are you risking yourself for me? Lyra asked as they descended. You have no obligation to protect me. Because it's the right thing to do, Nora replied without hesitation. And because I've spent my career studying alien life forms, trying to understand how different species think and feel. I never imagined I'd discover sentient beings being treated like property. They reached the bunker just as the first explosion rocked the station. The merchants hadn't even bothered trying to negotiate. Nora sealed the blast doors, activating the bunker's independent life support systems. They are afraid, Lyra suddenly announced, her form pulsing with new patterns. I can feel their emotions even through these walls. They fear what will happen if knowledge of their operation becomes public. Nora turned to her companion in surprise. You can sense their emotions. Even from here. All luminaries are empaths. It is why we were considered valuable as servants. We can anticipate our owner's needs and desires. Lyra's form rippled. But I am beginning to understand that this gift was meant for more than servitude. Another explosion shook the bunker. Dust rained from the ceiling as the station's structural integrity warnings began to blare. Nora accessed the emergency communications console, broadcasting a distress signal on all frequencies. It was a risk, the merchants would be able to trace it, but they were running out of options. Dr. Richardson. A familiar voice crackled through the console speakers. This is Commander Way of the Europa Security Force. We've detected explosions at your location. What's your situation? Relief flooded through Nora. Commander Way had always been sympathetic to her research. If anyone would help without asking too many questions, it would be her. Commander, I have evidence of an illegal trafficking operation on Europa. They're attempting to breach my station. I have a witness with me. There was a pause before Wei responded. Understood. Hold your position. Response teams are en route. Wei out. Lyra moved closer to Nora, her crystalline surface reflecting the bunker's emergency lights. More humans are coming. Their emotions are different from the merchants. Determined but not hostile. They're here to help, Nora assured her, hoping she was right. But Lyra, you should know, once they arrive, things will get complicated. There will be questions, investigations. I'll do everything I can to protect you, but dash. You have already done more than anyone has ever done for me, Lyra interrupted, her thought voice carrying a warmth that filled Nora's mind. You showed me that I am not merely property to be owned. Whatever comes next, I face it as a free being. The bunker trembled with another impact, but this one was different, the sound of security forces breaching the station from above. Nora reached out and took Lyra's crystalline hand, marveling at how it adapted to her touch, neither too hard nor too soft. Whatever comes next, she echoed, we face it together. 3 weeks after the rescue, Nora's research station had become a very different place. The Europa security force had arrested the merchants operating the trafficking facility, but the investigation was far from over. Meanwhile, Lyra's presence had transformed the sterile research environment into something extraordinary. The crystalline being had developed a fascination with Earth's art and music, which she experienced in ways Nora could barely comprehend. When Lyra listened to classical music, her entire form would ripple and pulse in perfect harmony with the rhythms, creating breathtaking light shows that danced across the station's walls. She particularly loved Debussy, saying the composer's work matched the patterns of her home world's crystal forests. Tell me more about your memories of home, Nora said one evening, as they sat in the observation dome watching Jupiter rise over Europa's horizon. You mentioned crystal forests. Lyra's form shimmered with uncertainty. The memories are fragmented. The merchants did something to suppress them, but being free seems to be bringing them back. She pulsed with a soft blue light. I remember tall spires of living crystal, like me, reaching toward 3 suns. The light would scatter through them, creating songs. Songs made of light. Nora reached for her tablet, making notes. Though she tried to maintain scientific objectivity, she couldn't help being fascinated by every new detail about Lyra's species. Your human languages lack the words to describe it properly. Lyra extended a crystalline tendril, touching Nora's temple gently. Suddenly, Nora's mind filled with an impossible sensation, light that sang, colors that danced, music that could be seen and touched. When the vision faded, Nora found tears streaming down her face. That's incredible. How could anyone want to enslave beings capable of such beauty? The same reason humans once enslaved each other, came Commander Wei's voice from the doorway. Both Nora and Lyra turned to see the security chief entering the observation dome. Power, profit, and the ability to convince yourself that another being is somehow less than you. Wei had become a regular visitor to the station, officially to check on the investigation's progress, but Nora suspected she was just as fascinated by Lyra as everyone else who met her. The commander's normally stern expression softened as she watched Lyra's crystalline form shimmer in greeting. We've made some progress, Wei announced, settling into a chair. The merchants were part of a larger syndicate operating throughout the outer colonies. We've identified 3 more facilities similar to the one here on Europa. Lyra's form darkened with distress, projecting feelings of concern and anger that made both humans wince. There are others like me. Still trapped. Not for long, Wei assured her. Now that we know what to look for, we're coordinating with colonial authorities to shut down the entire operation. I want to help, Lyra declared, her form pulsing with determination. I could sense if there are others nearby, communicate with them. They might be afraid to trust humans at first. Nora and Wei exchanged glances. They had discussed this possibility before, but both had concerns about putting Lyra at risk. Still, she was right, Who better to help free enslaved luminaries than one who had already made the journey to freedom? It would be dangerous, Nora warned. The syndicate is still out there, and they're not happy about losing their investment here. Lyra's form straightened, taking on a more defined shape that reminded Nora of a warrior's stance. I understand danger now. I also understand choice. This is my choice to make. The conviction in her thought voice was impossible to ignore. Wei nodded slowly. We could use her help, Dr. Richardson. And she's right, it should be her choice. Nora watched as Lyra drifted closer to the observation window, her crystalline form reflecting both Jupiter's light and the station's internal illumination. She had changed so much in just 3 weeks, growing from a confused, dependent being into someone who understood her own worth and the importance of helping others. There is something else, Lyra said softly, her thoughts tinged with an emotion Nora couldn't quite identify. The more my memories return, the more I remember about my people's purpose. We were not created to serve, as the merchants claimed. We were explorers, diplomats. Our ability to sense and share emotions made us natural bridges between different species. What happened? Wei asked, leaning forward. War, Lyra's form darkened again. A species that feared our abilities attacked our world. Many fled. Some were captured. The merchants found the survivors and twisted our diplomatic gifts into tools of servitude. Her form brightened with sudden intensity. But now I can help restore what was lost. Every luminary we free is another chance to rebuild what we once were. Nora felt pride swell in her chest. The being before her had transformed from a slave who questioned whether she deserved freedom into someone determined to help others find their own path to liberation. Whatever came next would be dangerous, but Lyra was right, it had to be her choice. Then we'll help you, Nora declared, standing to join her friend at the window. Whatever it takes. The rescue operation on Titan was going smoothly until it wasn't. Nora watched from the command center as Lyra approached the hidden facility, her crystalline form barely visible against the methane snow. 6 months of similar missions had made them confident, perhaps too confident. Something is wrong, Lyra's thoughts crackled through the comm system. The emotions here are different. Chaotic. Afraid, but not like before. Commander Wei's hand moved to her sidearm. Different how? Before Lyra could respond, the facility's doors burst open. Instead of the expected security forces, a crowd of different alien species poured out, some humanoid, others completely foreign to Nora's experienced eyes. Among them were several luminaries, their crystalline forms dulled and cracked. It's a trap. Lyra's mental voice rang with alarm. They're using the prisoners as shields. The merchants knew we were coming. Nora grabbed the comm. Lyra, get out of there. But her friend was already moving forward, not away from the danger. Through the surveillance feed, Nora watched as Lyra approached the frightened group. Her form began to pulse with gentle, rhythmic patterns Nora had come to associate with healing and comfort. The effect on the escaped prisoners was immediate. The chaos of their movements slowed, became more organized. Brothers, sisters, Lyra's thoughts reached not just the command center now, but all the beings before her. I was once as you are. Afraid. Unsure. Let me show you another way. Her form flared with brilliant light, and Nora gasped as images filled her mind, memories of freedom, of discovery, of friendship freely given rather than compelled. Lyra was sharing her own journey with them all. The other luminaries responded first, their dull forms beginning to shimmer with renewed light. They moved toward Lyra, and together their glow strengthened, creating a protective barrier around the other escaped prisoners. Now. Commander Wei barked into her comm security teams emerged from their hidden positions, moving in to secure the facility. This time, when they found the merchants, they were the ones cowering in fear. Hours later, as medical teams tended to the rescued prisoners, Nora found Lyra in the facility's main hall, surrounded by her fellow luminaries. They were communicating in a way she couldn't perceive, patterns of light and emotion too subtle for human senses. They remember now, Lyra told her as she approached. Not everything, but enough. The songs of the crystal forests, the harmony of the three suns, the joy of helping different species understand each other. Nora watched as one of the rescued luminaries helped calm a particularly distressed alien child, their gentle light soothing the little one's fears. You're rebuilding your culture, one rescue at a time. More than that, Lyra's form shifted with excitement. We've learned something vital. The merchants didn't just enslave us, they were trying to prevent us from fulfilling our true purpose. Which is peace. Another luminary joined them, introducing herself as Vestra. Our ancestors were not just diplomats. They were peacekeepers. They could sense growing conflicts before they erupted into violence, help different species understand each other before hatred took root. The merchants, Lyra continued, are part of a larger organization that profits from conflict. They feared what would happen if we were allowed to continue our work. Nora felt a chill. You're talking about preventing wars before they start. That would change everything. It already is changing, Commander Wei said, approaching with her tablet. Look at these reports from the colonies where we've freed luminaries. Incidents of interspecies violence have dropped dramatically. Cultural exchange programs are flourishing. It's like having universal translators for emotion instead of just language. Lyra's form rippled with what Nora recognized as pride and determination. This is why I was meant to be free. Not just for myself, but for all the beings who need our help. The merchants tried to turn our gift into a tool of servitude, but in doing so, they only proved how powerful it truly is. A commotion at the far end of the hall drew their attention. One of the rescued aliens, a reptilian being with iridescent scales, was arguing with a security officer. Before tensions could escalate, two luminaries glided over. Within moments, both parties were calm, finding common ground through the luminaries' gentle emotional guidance. I understand now, Nora said softly, watching the scene unfold. When I first found you, I thought I was just freeing one person from slavery. But this was never just about freedom from something, was it? It was about freedom to become what you were always meant to be. Lyra's form brushed against Nora's hand, sharing a feeling of deep gratitude and affection. You gave me the chance to discover that for myself. Now we can help others do the same. Commander Wei cleared her throat. Speaking of which, we've just received intelligence about another facility, on one of Neptune's moons. But this one's bigger, more heavily guarded. Then we'll need to be smarter, Lyra declared, her form brightening with determination. And this time, we have more help. The other luminaries gathered around them, their combined light filling the hall with shifting patterns of color and purpose. Nora looked at these remarkable beings, no longer slaves, but champions of peace and understanding, and felt honored to be part of their journey. 1 year after Lyra's rescue, the observation dome of Europa Station looked very different. Where once there had been only research equipment and stark metal walls, now crystalline growths sparkled in carefully cultivated patterns. They weren't just decorative, they formed a complex communication network, allowing luminaries across the solar system to stay connected. Nora sat at her desk, finalizing her report for the Interplanetary Council. On her screen, footage played from their most recent operation, the liberation of the Neptune facility. It had been their most ambitious mission yet, and its success had changed everything. The council is ready for us, Lyra announced, gliding into the room. Her crystalline form had grown more elaborate over the past year, incorporating delicate patterns that Nora now recognized as symbols of her people's ancient language. The large view screen activated, revealing the faces of the council members, representatives from Earth and all its colonies. Beside them sat 3 luminaries who had been elected as ambassadors for their newly reformed society. Dr. Richardson, Lyra, the council president nodded in greeting. We've reviewed your proposal. It's ambitious. But necessary, Lyra responded, her thought voice calm and confident. The merchants' network has been broken, but the conditions that allowed them to flourish still exist. Distrust between species, cultural misunderstandings, colonies competing for resources, these are the seeds of future conflicts. Nora stood, pulling up her presentation. What we're proposing is a partnership. The luminaries have offered to establish meditation centers throughout human space, places where their natural abilities can help prevent conflicts before they begin. In return, they ask for our help in locating and restoring their homeworld. The cost would be considerable, one counselor objected. And some might see this as trading one form of servitude for another. Lyra's form brightened. We would not be serving, but collaborating. My people have rediscovered our true purpose, we are bridges between worlds, facilitators of understanding. This is not servitude, but fulfillment. Commander Wei, now promoted to security director, spoke up from her seat on the council. I've seen their work firsthand. The meditation centers they've already established in the outer colonies have reduced violent incidents by 70%. Trade disputes are being resolved peacefully. Even long-standing cultural conflicts are easing. The council chambers fell silent as the members considered. Nora felt Lyra's gentle touch on her mind, sharing her mixture of hope and nervousness. So much depended on this moment. Finally, the president spoke. There are those who fear change, who would prefer we remain isolated and suspicious of other species. But that path leads only to more conflict, more suffering. She straightened in her chair. The council votes in favor of the partnership. Relief and joy radiated from Lyra, her form blazing with light that set the crystalline growths around the room shimming in response. Similar displays lit up council chambers as other luminaries reacted to the news. Later, as they stood watching Jupiter's eternal storms roll across the horizon, Nora turned to her friend. Did you ever imagine, when I first found you in that containment unit, that we'd end up here? No, Lyra admitted, her form shifting with amusement. I could barely imagine being free, let alone helping reshape relations between species. She paused, growing more serious. But you showed me something crucial that day. You showed me that change is possible, that beings can grow beyond the roles others assign them. You've taught me quite a bit too, Nora smiled. About seeing beyond surface differences, about the power of empathy. About how freedom isn't just about breaking chains, it's about building something new. Their conversation was interrupted by a signal from the communications array. One of the deep space probes had picked up an unusual reading, crystalline structures on a distant world, resonating with familiar patterns. Could it be? Nora breathed, examining the data. Lyra's form pulsed with recognition. Those are the songs of my people. That's home. As they studied the coordinates, making plans for an expedition, Nora reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a simple act of compassion, freeing one being from slavery, had grown into something that would reshape human society and beyond. The crystalline growths throughout the station hummed with energy as Lyra shared the news with her people across the solar system. Soon, they would begin a new journey, not just to find their lost home, but to create something even greater, a future where understanding bridged the gaps between all sentient beings. Ready for another adventure? Nora asked, already knowing the answer. Lyra's form sparkled with anticipation. With you? Always. After all, freedom isn't just a destination, it's a journey we take together. Outside the station, Jupiter continued its eternal dance, its light refracting through the crystalline networks that now connected human and luminary alike, a symbol of how much could change when beings chose to free not just bodies, but minds and hearts as well.